At the end of May 1941, some of the world's most powerful warships dueled in the middle of the Atlantic. It was to be one of the last great, all revolving around the flagship of the German Kriegsmarine, Bismarck.
The Bismarck has been silent for over 80 years. So why did a modern drone suddenly detect heat coming from inside the wreck? For decades, the German battleship Bismarck has rested in darkness, mapped and studied in detail. But during a recent drone mission, sensors detected something unexpected: heat inside the wreck. Moments later, the drone sent a distress signal, and the mission was halted. Today, we're breaking down what was found, what could explain it, and why it alarmed experts. Before we go deeper, make sure to follow along and subscribe, because discoveries like this rarely get explained properly. The legend that refuses to sink. The Bismarck holds a special place in naval history. When this German battleship launched in 1939, she represented the peak of engineering excellence. At 823 feet long and displacing over 52,000 tons, she was a floating fortress armed with 8 massive 15-inch guns. Her armor was thick enough to withstand incredible punishment, and her speed could reach 30 knots. In May 1941, the Bismarck embarked on her first and only combat mission into the Atlantic Ocean. The operation, codenamed Rheinübung, aimed to disrupt Allied supply convoys crossing between North America and Britain. These convoys were lifelines keeping Britain alive during the darkest days of World War II. German Naval Command believed the Bismarck could wreak havoc on these vital shipping lanes. The mission started with devastating success. During the Battle of the Denmark Strait, the Bismarck encountered the pride of the British Royal Navy, HMS Hood. In a battle that lasted less than 10 minutes, the Bismarck's shells found the Hood's magazine. The explosion was catastrophic. The Hood broke in half and sank in just 3 minutes, taking all but 3 of her 1,418 crew members with her. The sinking of the Hood shocked Britain to its core. Prime Minister Winston Churchill immediately ordered the Royal Navy to hunt down the Bismarck at all costs. What followed became one of the most intense naval chases in history, involving dozens of British warships, aircraft carriers, and planes searching thousands of square miles of Atlantic Ocean. The final battle and mysterious sinking. After sinking the Hood, the Bismarck didn't escape unscathed. A shell from HMS Prince of Wales had damaged her fuel tanks, causing her to leak precious oil. The German captain made a fateful decision: abandon the original mission and head for the French port of Brest for repairs. This choice would seal the battleship's fate. British forces lost contact with the Bismarck for over 30 hours. During this time, the ship seemed to vanish into the vast Atlantic. The British searched frantically, knowing that if the Bismarck reached France, she could repair and threaten convoys for months to come. Then, on May 26, a reconnaissance aircraft spotted her again. That evening, torpedo bombers from the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal launched an attack through terrible weather conditions. 15 swordfish biplanes, nicknamed string bags, flew through storms to reach their target. One torpedo struck the Bismarck's stern, jamming her rudders. The massive battleship could now only sail in circles at 7 knots. She was doomed. The next morning, May 27, 1941, British battleships HMS King George V and HMS Rodney caught up with their prey. For nearly 2 hours, they pounded the Bismarck with shells. Despite being unable to maneuver, the German battleship fought back fiercely. Her guns remained operational even as fires raged across her superstructure. By 10:15 a.m., the Bismarck was a burning wreck, her guns finally silent. The scuttling controversy. What happened next remains one of naval history's most debated questions. The British claimed their torpedoes and shells sank the Bismarck. German survivors insisted they scuttled their own ship by opening seacocks and detonating charges. This wasn't just about pride. It touched on national honor and the effectiveness of naval warfare. The Bismarck refused to sink despite horrific damage. Her armor belt remained largely intact even after absorbing hundreds of shells. The heavy cruiser HMS Dorsetshire fired 3 torpedoes into the burning hulk. Finally, at 10:40 a.m., the Bismarck rolled over and disappeared beneath the waves. Of her crew of approximately 2,300 men, only 110 survived. For decades, historians argued about the true cause of the sinking. British naval experts insisted their torpedoes had done the job. German veterans maintained they had deliberately sent their ship to the bottom to prevent British boarding parties from capturing her. Without examining the wreck itself, the debate seemed impossible to settle definitively. The Bismarck came to rest nearly 3 miles below the surface, far deeper than any diver could reach the wall. Extreme pressure at that depth crushes anything that isn't specially designed to withstand it. The wreck site location remained unknown for 48 years, adding to the ship's mystique and allowing legends to grow around her final moments. The hunt for the wreck. Dr. Robert Ballard became famous in 1985 for discovering the wreck of the Titanic. His success demonstrated that deep-sea exploration technology had advanced enough to find and document shipwrecks at extreme depths. The Bismarck became his next target, representing both a personal challenge and a significant historical opportunity. Finding the Bismarck proved incredibly difficult. The search area covered approximately 200 square miles of ocean floor, nearly 16,000 feet below the surface. The Atlantic Ocean at that depth is pitch black, freezing cold, and under crushing pressure. Traditional sonar systems could only provide limited information about what lay on the seafloor. Ballard's first expedition in July 1988 failed to locate the wreck. The team searched for weeks without success, facing equipment malfunctions and the challenge of scanning such a vast area. Deep-sea exploration requires enormous patience and persistence. One small navigation error could mean missing the target by miles and starting the search pattern all over again. The second expedition launched in late May 1989 with improved equipment and refined search parameters. On June 8, 1989, after combing the ocean floor methodically, Ballard's sonar finally picked up a massive object. As the team's cameras descended to investigate, the unmistakable shape of the Bismarck emerged from the darkness. After 48 years, the legendary battleship had been found. First glimpse of the deep. The discovery footage revealed something remarkable. The Bismarck sat upright on the seafloor, embedded in mud up to her designed waterline. Unlike many shipwrecks that land in pieces or on their sides, the SOS battleship maintained her dignified posture. Her massive turrets, though separated from the hull, lay nearby on the ocean floor. The wreck's condition amazed the exploration team. Despite spending decades at such extreme depth, many features remained recognizable. The teak wood decking had survived in places. Even some of the original paint still clung to the steel. The cold, oxygen-poor environment at that depth had preserved the wreck better than anyone expected. Ballard's cameras revealed extensive battle damage. Shell holes punctured the superstructure throughout. The forward and aft conning towers, though heavily damaged, remained attached to the hull. The ship's propellers were clearly visible, frozen in their final position. A debris field surrounded the main wreck, containing pieces of masts, rangefinders, and other equipment that had broken away during the descent. Most significantly, Ballard found 8 holes in the hull above the waterline, but no penetrations of the heavily armored citadel below. The evidence suggested that while British shells had devastated the upper works, they hadn't breached the ship's main armor belt. This discovery reignited the scuttling debate with new forensic evidence from the wreck itself. Underwater drones revolutionize exploration. Modern underwater exploration relies heavily on remotely operated vehicles, commonly called ROVs or underwater drones. These sophisticated machines have transformed our ability to study deep-sea environments and shipwrecks. Unlike human-operated submersibles, ROVs can stay underwater for extended periods without risking human lives. Today's underwater drones come equipped with high-definition cameras, powerful lighting systems, and advanced sonar equipment. They can navigate through tight spaces inside wrecks, places too dangerous for manned submersibles. Some models feature manipulator arms that can collect samples or move debris. The technology has advanced dramatically since the 1989 Bismarck discovery. ROVs typically connect to their support ship via a tether containing power cables and communication lines. This tether limits their range but provides continuous control and real-time video feedback. Autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, operate independently using pre-programmed missions. They're perfect for mapping large areas of seafloor, but lack the flexibility of tethered ROVs for detailed investigation. The sensors on modern underwater drones can detect temperature variations, measure water chemistry, and create detailed three-dimensional maps of wreck sites. They use sonar to see through murky water and can operate in total darkness. These capabilities make them invaluable tools for marine archaeology, scientific research, and industrial inspections of underwater infrastructure. James Cameron's expedition. In 2002, filmmaker James Cameron led his own expedition to the Bismarck. Fresh from his success with Titanic, Cameron brought modern, underwater filming technology and a determination to answer lingering questions about the battleship's sinking. His expedition would produce stunning footage and new insights into the wreck's condition. Cameron used the Russian research vessel Academic Mstislav Keldysh, the same ship from his Titanic dives. The vessel carried two manned submersibles, Mir 1 and Mir 2, capable of reaching the ocean floor at the Bismarck's depth. His brother Mike Cameron designed two advanced ROVs, nicknamed Jake and Elwood, specifically for exploring inside the wreck. The expedition team included historians, naval architects, and two Bismarck survivors who had never returned to the site. Watching these elderly German sailors react emotionally as they floated above their sunken ship provided a powerful human context to the historical investigation. Old enemies from both sides now looked back with mutual sadness at the tremendous loss of life. Cameron's ROVs captured the first footage from inside the Bismarck's hull. The cameras navigated through torpedo holes and documented interior spaces that had been sealed in darkness since 1941. The expedition found more evidence of shell damage throughout the superstructure but continued to find the armored citadel largely intact, supporting the theory that flooding from opened seacocks contributed significantly to the sinking. What the wreck really reveals. Detailed examination of the Bismarck wreck shows extensive battle damage above the waterline. The photographic evidence reveals numerous shell holes and fragment impacts across the superstructure. Estimates suggest the ship absorbed between 300 and 400 hits from shells ranging from 133 mm to 406 mm in caliber during her final battle. The port side of the wreck sustained much heavier damage than the starboard side. This makes sense given that HMS Rodney and HMS King George V spent most of the engagement bombarding her port side. One turret shows evidence of a catastrophic internal explosion, likely caused by shell splinters igniting ammunition on the loading platform. However, the armored belt protecting the ship's vitals remained largely unbreached. The British shells, while devastating to the superstructure and crew, hadn't penetrated deeply enough to cause fatal flooding on their own. The stern had separated from the main hull, breaking away roughly where a British torpedo had struck and jammed the rudders. Most telling, the wreck shows no evidence of internal implosions that would occur if a ship sinks with sealed, air-filled compartments. The crushing deep-sea pressure would have caused the hull to collapse inward catastrophically. Instead, the hull appears relatively intact, suggesting the compartments had flooded before the ship sank. This evidence supports survivor accounts of the crew opening seacocks to scuttle their vessel. The viral heat detection claims. Recently, stories have circulated online claiming that modern underwater drones detected unusual heat signatures inside sealed chambers of the Bismarck. These sensational accounts describe drones sending distress signals after encountering warm pockets in the wreck. Some versions even suggest mysterious sealed compartments that had never been explored before. These claims make for exciting reading, but we need to examine them critically. The Bismarck has been resting on the ocean floor for over 80 years in water that hovers just above freezing. The surrounding environment at that depth maintains a nearly constant temperature of around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. Any heat source would dissipate rapidly in such conditions. No credible scientific expedition to the Bismarck has reported finding unexplained heat signatures or sealed chambers containing warm air. The major documented expeditions by Robert Ballard in 1989, James Cameron in 2002, and subsequent visits by other researchers found no such phenomena. These expeditions were conducted by respected scientists using calibrated equipment. The stories appear to originate from social media posts and clickbait websites rather than legitimate marine archaeology sources. They lack specific details about which expedition supposedly made these discoveries, what organization funded the research, or what scientific explanations might account for the observations. This absence of verifiable information is a major red flag for misinformation. Why these stories spread? The Bismarck wreck naturally attracts mystery and speculation. It's a legendary warship resting in one of Earth's most inaccessible environments. The extreme depth and darkness of her location feed our imagination. We're drawn to the idea that something unknown might lurk in those cold, dark compartments 3 miles beneath the waves. Clickbait content creators understand this fascination. They craft sensational headlines designed to generate views and engagement. Stories about mysterious heat sources, sealed chambers, and drones sending distress signals tap into our love of mysteries. They blend just enough real information about the Bismarck with fictional elements to seem plausible at first glance. Modern underwater exploration does involve sophisticated thermal imaging and other sensors that can detect temperature variations. This kernel of truth makes the fabricated stories more believable. However, legitimate scientific equipment would be calibrated for deep-sea conditions and would distinguish between actual anomalies and normal environmental variations. The Bismarck's status as a war grave also adds emotional weight to these stories. Over 2,000 sailors died with the ship, their remains still entombed within the wreck. This tragic reality makes people more receptive to stories suggesting something unusual about the site. We want to believe there's more to discover, more mysteries to solve, more respect to pay to those who perished. Actual mysteries worth exploring. While the heat detection claims don't hold up to scrutiny, the Bismarck wreck does present real mysteries that continue to intrigue researchers. The exact sequence of events during her final minutes remains debated. How long did she stay afloat after British ships ceased fire? How many crew members might have survived initially, only to drown as the ship went under? The missing stern section has never been located. The stern broke away from the main hull, but it doesn't lie near the primary wreck site. Finding this section could provide valuable information about how the torpedo damage contributed to the sinking. It might also contain artifacts and evidence about the ship's final moments. Researchers continue to study the wreck's deterioration rate. Like the Titanic, the Bismarck is slowly being consumed by rust and bacterial action. Iron-eating bacteria create formations called rusticles that hang from the wreck like icicles. Understanding this decay process helps scientists predict how long these historic sites will remain intact for future generations. The German government considers the Bismarck a war grave and restricts access to the wreck site. This protection preserves the site as a memorial to the fallen sailors. However, it also means fewer scientific expeditions can study the wreck, leaving some questions unanswered. Balancing preservation, respect, and scientific inquiry remains an ongoing challenge. Respecting war graves underwater. The Bismarck wreck is legally protected as a war grave under international maritime law. Germany, as the ship's country of origin, holds legal title to the wreck regardless of where it rests. This protection prevents salvage operations, souvenir hunting, and unauthorized disturbance of the site. The same protections apply to many warships lost during both World Wars. Over 2,000 sailors perished with the Bismarck. Their remains rest within the wreck or were scattered across the seafloor during the sinking. For families of the victims, the wreck represents a cemetery deserving the same respect as any memorial on land. Explorers who visit these sites bear a responsibility to treat them with appropriate solemnity. When Robert Ballard discovered the Bismarck, he deliberately kept the exact coordinates secret to prevent treasure hunters from raiding the site. This decision protected the wreck for years. James Cameron's expedition worked with German authorities and consulted with survivors' families before diving. These respectful approaches set important precedents for maritime archaeology. The rise of deep-sea tourism raises new ethical questions about war graves. As technology makes extreme depths more accessible, more people want to visit famous wrecks. Balancing public interest in history with respect for the dead requires careful consideration. Some argue that limited regulated access for educational purposes can honor the fallen by ensuring their stories aren't forgotten. The real legacy of Bismarck exploration. The Bismarck expeditions advanced our understanding of deep-sea exploration technology and maritime archaeology. Techniques developed for exploring this wreck have been applied to countless other sites. The high-definition documentation created detailed archives that allow people worldwide to study the wreck without disturbing it further. These expeditions taught valuable lessons about combining historical research with forensic examination of physical evidence. By bringing together survivors, historians, and scientists, the James Cameron expedition created a multidisciplinary approach that has influenced how we study maritime history. The emotional reunion of former enemies at the wreck site demonstrated the healing power of shared remembrance. The detailed analysis of battle damage on the Bismarck has improved our understanding of World War II naval warfare. Naval architects studying the wreck gained insights into armor effectiveness, shell penetration, and damage control. These findings have applications beyond historical interest, informing modern naval design and engineering. Perhaps most importantly, the Bismarck expeditions remind us that truth is often more fascinating than fiction. The real story of this battleship's brief career, dramatic chase, and stubborn refusal to sink needs no embellishment. The courage shown by sailors on both sides, the engineering marvel of the ship itself, and the technological achievement of finding and studying her wreck 3 miles down provide endless authentic wonder. The tale of submarine drones detecting heat inside the Bismarck and sending distress signals makes for attention-grabbing headlines, but it belongs to the realm of internet fiction rather than documented history. The real story of the Bismarck and the expeditions that found her offers something far more valuable than sensational claims: genuine insight into history, engineering, and human courage. What do you think draws us to mysterious stories about shipwrecks, even when the truth is already fascinating? Share your thoughts in the comments below.